yesterday. The president has survived the impeachment vote, but is that where it will end? And more importantly, one of the questions we must certainly ask ourselves is, has proportional representation, this idea that ultimately members of parliament are accountable to their parties and not necessarily to the constitution or the citizens first, is that something that has damaged our democracy? We'll start with the sponsors of the Section 89 impeachment process. The African Transformation Movement's Vuyo Zungula is on the line. A very good morning to you, and thank you for talking to us. You said in reaction yesterday that you're not taking this matter lying down. You're considering your legal options, are you?
Definitely, Bongani. Firstly, the decision of the Speaker not to grant a secret ballot, and there were existing cases of threats and intimidation on members of Parliament. We view that as an irrational decision, and we are in consultation with our lawyers on that one. The second issue, it is the rejection of a report that comes from an independent panel set up by Parliament to say, you as Parliament, you may investigate further an issue on the conduct of the president. We also think that is an irrational decision for Parliament not to investigate the matter further.
At what point do you accept that you simply don't have the numbers, that ultimately this was always going to boil down to that? The ANC made a very strong case, as was espoused by Ronald Lamola, the Justice Minister, in terms of the flaws of the report, notwithstanding, of course, the President's right to take it on review.
Look, Bongan, if you look at the culture of the ANC, when Mr. Mbeki was president, they defended him. Immediately when he left being president, they talked about how he messed up with the HIV and AIDS policy. Similar thing with Mr. Zoma. When he was president, they defended him. Immediately when he left, they talk about 9 wasted years in Gandla, etc. The same thing is going to happen now, in the sense that immediately when Mr. Ramaphosa is not president, they are going to speak out. So it's not in their culture to speak out and hold their presidents accountable because they are
sure. That's why you have a political party in existence. You're not ANC. You've put yourself up against them, in opposition to them, but ultimately the voters haven't given you the mandate they have been given.
The voters gave us a mandate as a party in Parliament to hold the government accountable, the executive accountable. So that is what we are doing in Parliament through these motions. We are definitely holding the executive accountable. And we'll recall that the Zondo Commission of Inquiry stated that Parliament, members of Parliament have to always act in the interest of the country, not the interest of the party. That is why mechanisms such as the secret ballot are important to make sure that members of Parliament are not intimidated to vote in a particular direction.
Oh, I appreciate your time. That's the African Transformation President, Vuyo Zungula, on the line there. The DA's Chief Whip, a very good morning to you and thank you for your time. Ultimately, the numbers were simply not on your side. What happens next?
Good morning, Bongani, and to your listeners. Look, firstly, I do want to quickly reflect on how much of a disappointment, in my view, it is that the ANC took the decision that they took. I think it's important to state for the record and for South Africans that we were not voting to impeach a president yesterday. Yesterday, we were voting to carry on a process that Parliament had started at great public cost, by the way, in the millions of rands when we set up that independent panel. And for me, the ANC was completely over-sensitized or sensitive about the process and basically hobbled the work of Parliament due to internal party politics. Indeed, you're right, 148 votes versus 214 just wasn't enough. But this is not the first time that the ANC has rallied around a president that has had fake allegations. And so, of course, for us, we've got to explore legal options and parliamentary options because it's still our job, regardless of whether or not we've got the numbers, to make sure that we hold the executives to account.
What's your rejoinder to Ronald Lamola, who made the argument that the debate itself was a form of holding the president accountable?
I mean, I would say that's absolutely absurd. I mean, a debate is not the process. It's not the stage 2 of the process. I think the ANC yesterday really battled and pretzeled themselves hard to essentially justify what was, in effect, a way to render Parliament useless because of their own political interests. It was not holding the president accountable to debate a matter. The fact is, voting and having the impeachment inquiry set up would have allowed the president to ventilate and disprove whatever it is that he claims is not true about the report. An innocent person, Bongani, would have grabbed that opportunity with both hands so that he can state his case. It is absurd to me that the president would just simply, or that his party would rather not have him go to that inquiry if he truly has nothing to answer for.
Sivuyo Kwahube, appreciate your time on the line.
702.
The Big Interview
With Bongani Bingwa.
All right, he made a spirited defense of the ANC's position in Parliament yesterday. He joins us now, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola. Thank you for your time this morning. One of the arguments you made yesterday, of course, was how the debate itself was a way of holding the president accountable. Many of your critics will say that's not convincing. What you really needed was the president to answer the questions that we still don't quite know the answers to.
Bongani, the debate yesterday was meant to, at the end, scrutinize, look at the report, criticize, and make all considerations. And it was in terms of the rules. The rules says Parliament should consider, should look at the report, scrutinize it, and decide whether Parliament wants to accept or to reject the report. There were two ways that we could go. But the report, Bongani, even from legal practitioners, academics, and everyone, there is consensus that it's both factually and legally flawed. So there must be a strong foundation, because this was the first leg, which is not an island from the second leg. And when you want to go to the second leg in terms of the rules of Parliament, of appointing a Section 89 panel, you must have laid a very solid foundation, because this is a process to impeach a sitting president. You want him to go to that process of an inquiry when you have laid a very solid foundation. But the foundation was not there. The report does not back the process of now commencing the Section 89 inquiry. In its own self, the report says that it did not have what it needed. It bemoans a number of issues. On its own, it's not us. And therefore, there was no basis for the report to be the basis of us proceeding with the Section 89 panel as other political parties are saying. And I want to conclude by saying that from their perspective, Bogan, you will have only said you are holding the president to account, or you will have done your job in terms of the report, only if we adopted it and proceeded with the Section 89 inquiry.
So here's the difficulty.
So as the ANC was saying, even if we did not adopt the report, we still did the job that the rules and Parliament wanted us to do.
Here's the difficulty. I need not tell you how much politics is about perception. This is a president who has said he's a reformer. This is a president who has sold himself to the electorate as Mr. Cleanup Guy, essentially because the numbers are on your side. He's now going to be going forward without the moral authority he has had until now, and basically almost ruling on technicalities.
Yeah, but it's not technicalities. It will also be technicalities if we proceed with the report. Same with the opposition, Bongan. They are using the same rules, and those rules are clear. You either accept or reject the report. And the issue of numbers, it has always been known that the ANC has got the majority of numbers in Parliament. And we allowed the process, firstly, to go to the appointment of the panel, Bongan. If it was just an issue of technicality, we would not have allowed the panel to be appointed. But we allowed the panel to be appointed, and we allowed its report to be presented. And we scrutinized the report. We looked at the report from all corners. We said, objectively, this report cannot take us forward. And there is, it's not just the ANC and the issue of numbers, even in society, for sure, even yourself, you have interviewed a number of legal practitioners, academics. There are a number of them who say there are flaws. So why would the ANC allow a process which does not have proper foundation to continue in terms of the Section 89? So we had ground, and what we did was rational in terms of the rules and the constitution of the country.
All right.
And we attended the debate, we participated, and the president also did not apply to court to interdict the debate. He allowed it to continue.
Your thoughts on a senior member of the party, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a member of cabinet with yourself, who has, of course, put her hand up for the race to lead the party at the national conference this weekend. She voted yes.
Yeah, is that not an example, Bongani? There are members of the ANC who voted yes. Is that not an example that there's no one who was threatened? They could be able to vote, as Mr. Zungula and Ms. Khawule were saying earlier on.
Yeah, except the chairperson has said they'll be punished.
Let me finish, Bongani. It's only in the ANC where you found people voting differently to the whole party. In the DA, there was none. Can Khubule show you? In the EFF, there was none. Can they show you who voted against the EFF's view? Are you saying all members of the ANC and of the EFF and DA were like sheep? All of them agreeing to say yes? It's not possible, Bongan. So it's clear the ANC is the only democratic party, and I will leave it to the National Executive Committee to decide what it wants to do with the members who voted in the manner in which they voted.
And there's your answer. Ronald Lamola, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, there with the ANC's perspective about what happened yesterday.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.